So Black Clover chapter 316 proves to be a very monumental chapter for the overall series because obviously it showcases the passing of the torch. The literal beacon of the series has been passed now when Asta actually performs Yami's signature move in his very own fashion, that is a move or a variation of the Higengiri Higan, which is improvised by Asta and his anti-magic. This was absolutely beautiful to witness, and it was really amazing for the readers overall when the chapter really felt short. But moving beyond that, it's not just about Asta passing Yami anymore. I mean, it's still up for debate whether Asta is actually stronger than Yami or not, but now a very interesting conversation might come up, especially in regards to the demon slasher katana. Up until this moment, we didn't really think much about this sword because at the hands of Yami, this was a regular katana, a regular Japanese based sword, nothing more than that. We didn't really thought much about it, but now, especially with this new move, this Infinity/Equinox, I think that there's a very deep mythological aspect and a very deep legend of Japan which is being introduced by Tabata here into the story. So let's just jump into it. So hello and welcome to WhyZ, and today we are going to talk about the demon slasher katana and the references and influences which are potentially going on behind the scenes for this sword, because things are about to get a little crazy here. I mean, this is still speculation, this is still a theory of mine based upon a sort of Japanese legend motivated around the swords, but then again, at the end of the day, this is still a theory, so keep your tinfoil hats on. Also, if you're new here, then please consider subscribing to the channel since I do weekly anime and manga related content along with a bunch of other stuff. That being said, let's just jump into it. So the main core of the chapter is that Asta performs his own variation of the Dimension/Equinox or Higengiri Higan, wherein Asta, using his anti-magic, literally cuts down the manifestation of the vessel of Lucifero. Now here's how the most important thing to note is that Lucifero's magic, Lucifero's gravity magic is influencing every single person here. So me and a lot of other people obviously thought that Asta is going to use a version of Dimension Slash. It was very evident the prior chapter was a lead up to this particular incident, and the addition of Libe's motivation, to avenge Felicita's death was a very big motivation factor here. So combining all of these things together, Asta introduces a new move in the form of Infinity Slash. Again, the WhyZ translation might be a little different here, so I'm not going into that shenanigan, but basically the core essence of this move is that Asta will only cut what he wants to cut. This Dimension Slash, it's basically cutting infinity at this point. It's going to nullify the gravity magic. It's going to nullify this vessel, this huge behemoth of a vessel, which is combined with all the low and mid-ranking devils. It has combined with the entire castle. It has combined with concrete. It has combined with various different things, and it's an amalgamation at this moment. And Asta's anti-magic is going to nullify all of these things, and the words used here are really on point. Asta says that he who was not chosen by Mana is going to influence what he wants. Using this move, he's going to only cut the thing which he wants. The other things are not going to be cut here, namely Yami and William are not going to be affected by this particular move. Now reading this, I was immediately reminded about a particular fight which I read back in the day, that is Zoro versus Mr. One, and the entire philosophy of a sword cutting something and not cutting something. And while I was thinking about that and making some Google searches of my own, I stumbled upon an old story. I think I had read this somewhere in another One Piece related theory, and this is basically a very old legend of Japan, and I feel like Tabata is maybe introducing some elements from this story, and it's not just one part of the story but rather the entirety of the story as a whole. He's mixing and matching things up. So basically the story which I'm trying to talk about here is the legend of Masamune and Maramusa. Now this is a legendary tale, and it's most likely not a true one. It's a legend. It's something which might not have happened in real life, because these two characters or these two people were legendary figures of Japan, but they lived in different era, but the tale goes on that Maramusa was a challenger to his master Masamune. Both of them were absolutely legendary sword makers or swordsmith. Now, Masamune was a very calm and collected person, and Muramasa was a little different kind of a guy. Both of them were extremely talented, but once upon a time, they had a bet. There was a challenge to see who was the better swordsmith, who could craft a better sword, and this was the challenge, this was the legend. Now there are some varying degrees and varying versions of this story. One legend involves a shogun, one legend involves an old monk, one legend involves a forest. So it's a little convoluted here, but the story, the main essence of the story remains the same in all of these different iterations. Basically in this challenge, Masamune and Muramasa both had to testify who was the better swordsmith with their swords. Now both of them gave their everything in order to make this new swords. Masamune literally gave a part of his own soul, and this gave rise to a sword called Yawarakai-Te, which translates somewhat to tender hand. And on the other hand, Muramasa crafted his numero uno, which turned out to be Juuchi Yosamu, which translates somewhat to 10,000 cold nights. And they finally started their battle, and a monk was the, you could say, referee in this particular regard. Now the sword crafted by Muramasa looked like a demon, looked like a very demonic sword, because he had his ambitions. It was not a pure soul in which he was making it. He wanted to win this battle, he wanted to win this challenge, and he literally put a part of his soul into making these swords, and thereby, because of impure emotions, the sword turned out to be demonic. Now Muramasa has been known to make demonic swords, and I'm going to come up with this part and link it to Asta's situation in a bit. But before that, his sword, that is Juuchi Yosamu, it can cut literally everything. In this challenge, they decided to see it upon a river stream, wherein this sword literally cuts everything in its path. Leaves, fish, water, river, everything was cut away, even the very air blew away, and the river turned red with blood. So that is the cutting prowess of this sword. It is so sharp that it literally cut everything in its way. But on the other hand, when Masamune came up with his sword, that is Yawarakai-Te or tender hands, into the stream, he just waited there patiently. Not even the leaves were cut actually. I mean, in some stories maybe the leaves were cut, but for the most part, in most of the depictions of the story, the leaves were not cut, the fish were not cut, and even the air and water just gently went past it, as if it was not even touching anything. There was nothing there. That's the kind of sword Yawarakai-Te actually was. And seeing this, Muramasa was obviously overjoyed, and he's like, okay, my sword is obviously the better one, and he just literally destroyed a tree in his joy. But then the monk came up who was watching the whole ordeal. He walked over to the two swordsmen and he began to explain that the first of the sword was by all account a fine sword. However, it is bloodthirsty and evil blade, as it does not discriminate as to who or what it will cut. It may just very well be cutting down butterflies as well as severing heads. But the second sword was the finer of the two, as it does not needlessly cut that is innocent and that is undeserving. Basically, the second sword, that is Yawarakai-Te, belongs to the will of the owner, belongs to the will of the wielder. It is not going to cut what the wielder does not want. And if you are able to link up the story up until this moment, this places exactly like the current situation, wherein Asta is only going to cut, or Asta's move, that is the Infinity Slash, is only going to cut what Asta wants. He does not want to harm Yami, he does not want to harm William, he does not want to harm any of the other, townspeople who are trapped beneath the crafty magic. And that's why he's using a move similar to Yawarakai-Te, wherein he's only going to cut what he wants. The other things are not going to be affected by this. I feel like this is the philosophy which Tabata sort of wanted to incorporate here in this story. Moreover, this sword, that is Yawarakai-Te, I was not able to find an exact replica of how it looked, but from the various depictions which I could find online, various articles and whatnot, it looks like a traditional Japanese katana. It looks like a fine blade, a godly looking blade, and prior to reaching Asta, the blade sort of resembles the form it possessed while it was at the hands of Yami. And now, while it is at the hands of Asta, and using the arms of Asta as well. It sort of looks like a demonic blade, especially with Asta's right arm, which was a result of obviously the demon binding spell. And now I feel like Tabata is using both the parts of the story. He's using obviously Yawarakai-Te, which is tender hands, wherein the blade will only cut what the wielder wants. And at the same time, he's also incorporating the demonic entity, the demonic presence of Juuchi Yosamu, that is the severing part, the cutting part, and the demonic part. So I feel like this is the basic influence surrounding the demon slasher katana. What do you guys think about all of these things? Am I just maybe analyzing things a little too much? But then again, I feel like this really makes a lot of sense. Every single mangaka out there incorporates some form of a mythology, some form of a legend in his or her story. It's evident with Black Clover in itself. We have seen a lot of mythological references to the series in the past, so it won't be really surprised if Tabata is actually using something like this here within the story. So what do you guys think about all these things? Please do let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more. Join the channel membership for some very cool perks and features. Join the Discord server for more. This is it for today. See you all on the next one.